Hello, my name is Christian Mayerga, and today I'm here to explain to you about Chapter 9, which is the dynamics of interpersonal relationships. So, to sum up, this chapter orients itself around the dynamics of interpersonal relationships and the communication that occurs within them. With this, I'd like to compare this chapter and the ideas of a relationship with a movie I had recently seen, which was known as Aloha, played by starring Bradley Cooper and Emma Stone. Moving on to the next slide, here's a chapter overview. So we all know that we can't really choose the relationships we want to have in our lives. We can't really choose who we want our parents to be, who are colleagues, or the people that we work with or go to school with every day. You can't really choose that. And with this chapter has to do with the elements which can lead to a successful or a negative relationship, the standards of the comparison level of alternatives, the relational communications, relational dialects and tensions, and how they all relate to the movie Aloha. So, moving on to the next slide, how does this romantic movie have anything to do with the dynamics of interpersonal relationships? First off, this movie, to sum up, is actually about a military contractor known as Brian Gilchrist, played by Bradley Cooper, who has returned to Hawaii to develop a pedestrian gate for this millionaire, played by Bill Murray, who intends to build a space station on this nearby land of Hawaii. Along this, Gilchrist had to come off from abandoning his future and now actually married wife Tracy because he was such a workaholic and never really would be home or just see his family. So to make this love story short, Gilchrist was assigned to speak to native Hawaiians about buying this land for this space station alongside his liaison, Air Force liaison, played by known as Engie, played by Emma Stone. So her being born and raised in Hawaii and being his partner is what actually shows Gilchrist what passions and love one can have for their homeland, their people, for their country, and that's what makes him fall for her. But the thing that becomes a conflict is that this space station actually he happens to be the only one that knows that it's actually for nuclear weapons, and it's actually a power plant for nuclear weapons, but he keeps it from her, later building up to the conflict, which happens more towards the end of the movie. So why this movie? Because each scene actually involves tensions, relational maintenance, repairing damaged relationships, and interpersonal communication. So now moving on to slide number 4. So how and why do relationships come to be? First off, we tend to have first and last impressions solely based off of judging each other's appearances. Since we're human, this isn't always the case, but a large chunk of the time, appearance is the deciding factor. Whether you want to see them tomorrow, whether you want to keep talking to them, appearance does take its toll and what a relationship can or can't be. So when we think we have found the right match, sparks are flying, to we can relate to their ideas and their similarities because they complement each other. When you have similarities, similar ideas, similar likes, similar dislikes, that's what builds this introductory phase. So in the movie Aloha, Gilchrist and Engie happen to fall in love because they were similar in having past military history, their appreciation for military, their appreciation for their homelands, and have had history themselves with relationships. And they open up to each other, telling each other about their past and all that. So next on, why do we form relationships? It's because we feel the relationship will be rewarding to us, and because we see our partners as competent. The way we calculate the checks and balances between partners of a relationships and the rewards and costs is with the exchange theory formula, which is actually rewards minus cost equals outcome. So when you think of it, when the rewards outweigh the costs, you're bound to have a successful relationship. But now when the costs outweigh the rewards, it's going to be negative outcomes. It's going to be a negative relationship, and it actually won't probably really last that long because rewards should always be outweighing the cost that you're giving out in a relationship. So this formula is based off the earnings and the givings that would determine a positive or a negative outcome within a relationship. As it has been known, we tend to form relationships with those that we frequently see every day, those that we work with, those that we go to school with, we see them every single day. So there's kind of bound likings and you guys just attract to each other from frequently seeing each other. That's just a situation that tends to happen with us within society. So having these fundamentals, what is the comparison level? This is the idea that one's minimal standard or a behavior of what it may be. As seen in the movie, Gilchrist failed to reach these standards with his first wife, Tracy, and it actually led to the breakup. And Gilchrist analyzed that the awards that he can be attaining from another person using the comparison level of alternatives. This is when one realizes the rewards they are receiving from the relationship, but compares it to what they think they should be or can be receiving elsewhere from another person. So this is pretty much when Gilchrist is comparing his past relationship he had with Tracy, but he's also thinking in his head what it can possibly and what can possibly become of a relationship and what can please him more by thinking about NG. So it's that little phase when you're trying to decide and trying to just compare one from the other. With that, I'd like to continue on to the next slide, which is the 10 stages of successful relational communication. On this slide, you can see a diagram. It was developed by Mark Knapp, which is divided into three categories, which is of coming together, relational maintenance, and coming apart. So with this, since we're human, some of these stages, that doesn't really always happen in an orderly fashion. More like some happen to intertwine, some happen to overlap. And first off, we commence through the initiation phase of introduction, later to go on to the experimental stage. So pretty much these two stages is the introduction, later to experiment. If you want to see the person tomorrow, if you want to talk to them again tomorrow, or what did you like about the person? That's the experiment. You're testing the waters. So as things are going well, and you were able to prove that you're charming enough to this person you're talking to, uh, as things are going great, the relationship intensifies into development, and then the social status comes to par in the form of integration. Well, are you a Facebook couple officially? What are you guys doing? What's your status quo? Society does play a part. So as you are with your partner or a close friend or family member, we bond with the person and either accept or defy the differences that will either improve or destroy the relationship. Things are going pretty good, right? Yeah, the introductory phase was great, the experimental stage was great, the integration, all that's going great. So, but in being in a relationship, not everything will go always perfect. There's always a little rough patch, or things may get a little bit sour, and because when this happens, one partner tends to start losing a little bit of interest, whatever the case may be, and then in doing so, they start reducing a little bit of contact and circumscribing as if a stagnated plateau has been reached. This is when, I guess, uh, likings start to diminish a little bit, and you just want to give a little bit of distance, and then finally, the one thought of long-lasting relationship through quarrels, disagreements, and other factors um, has come down to it happens to come down to avoidance, which pretty much what the word means. The one partner just doesn't want to see the other, wants to reduce contact, wants to reduce communication, and it later leads to a termination stage, which is pretty much the breakup. So it's all up to the partners and how they communicate and how much affection and how strong they think the relationship is to avoid and overcome these obstacles. Let's say that the relationship just hasn't ended just yet and it's still going on. We have a we have to face dialectical tensions with our partners because not everyone will always be in agreement. And if you say that you're always in agreement with your partner 100% of the time, 24/7, I'm sorry, but you're lying to yourself. The first tension is integration separation, which happens when one partner craves independence as contradictory needs create obstacles in the relationship. In this movie, Gilchrist was the strong, independent military veteran, but in stumbling across NG, that characteristic is what postpones his relationship from actually happening because he's that strong military person and just seemed annoyed about having a partner, later to know that he was going to fall in love with her. So after this, goes in conclusion, seclusion, and stability change dialectic, which is when you and your partner ask each other, do we really want to go to this family dinner, or do we kind of want to spend this night more for ourselves? Is this finally the Friday night we'd have together? And simply, one in a relationship doesn't want to be the unpredictable one all the time. It's good to be unpredictable time to time. We're human. We're not always going to be unpredictable. But when we are, for a large portion of the time, it tends to be a nuisance in the relationship because no one really wants to not be able to predict what you like, not be able to predict what you want to do. It just wouldn't make sense. Um, so, with this, then we have the ways in which we tend to open up to our partner. Are we? How open are we? How private will we be with our partner? Do we tell our partner everything? What should we keep? Do you think you're open enough with your partner? So, moving on. How do we confront these tensions? Yeah, of course, we can always talk each other's annoyances, but some have just happened to deny change from ever happening and just accept it and just act helpless to it and are too disoriented to face the conflict. What I'm trying to say is that some of us just don't even want to face the conflict. And when you're not facing the conflict within a relationship or talking each other's issues out, you're doomed to not really have a successful outcome, or it's just going to keep getting negative. So we tend to prioritize some of the tensions more than others, and this is known as segmentation. Finally, after all the fights and the conflicts and the balance, integration, and recalibration, they all play a toll into repairing a damaged relationship. Without the recalibration, without the integration, any balance at all, without the acceptance and you guys talking each other's problems out, there's no way that a wounded relationship will actually be repaired. So through the whole movie, with the relationship between Gilchrist and NG, along Tracy and her current husband, they face personal conflict later. They talk each other's problems out. They go through repairment and recalibration to have a successful relationship in the end. Both relationships, NG and Gilchrist and Tracy and her current husband, by talking out each other's problems, going over what can be improved, that's the only way that they have successful enough communication to make things work. So to conclude, these tensions, there comes a level to how major or how big the conflict will be. Those acts that may unplease the fellow partner are actually known as transgression. It all comes down to how intense, how big the situation may be, and society does play a part in making specific actions acceptable or not within a relationship. In the ending of the movie, society wasn't really fond of Gilchrist being the only one that knew about this nuclear power plant that was being built. But his relational side had actually ended up canceling the entire nuclear power plant, blowing it up, and to preserve the Hawaiian land just because of the relational and the feelings that he had for NG. And by doing this is what literally made the relationship come to be. So it's kind of checks and balance, sacrifice a little bit. So all in all, as you can tell, the dynamics of our interpersonal relationships are quite the roller coaster. It has its ups and downs, its build-ups, its stagnant setbacks, and resolutions or terminations. So as we can tell with the movie Aloha, Gilchrist terminates a marriage, he finds a lover again, overcomes tensions. You get the point. So all these stages are ideas and common for interpersonal relationship, but interpersonal relationships and being humans is not really something that we want, but it's something more of a factor that we actually need. The contact, the acceptances of society, the acceptance of your partner, the opening up, having someone else. The way that us humans work is that we just need to be able to open, need to be able to communicate with another person. So as I said, it's not that we want to have these interpersonal relationships, but it's as a human something that we actually end up needing to survive, to be happy, to pursue happiness. So with this, that's what the topic about interpersonal relationships may be. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.